Good morning. Today we are going to start a new topic, and that topic this morning is addressing the question, would a good God actually send a person to hell? Let's talk about that. I'm glad you have joined us today as we continue this series on topics. And the topic today is God, Yahweh, sending people to hell. Is that something that He, a loving God, would actually do? Now sometimes we, in order to answer this question, we start heading off into these legalese about combining justice and judgment with grace and mercy and how all that all fits together. But today I want us to go a slightly different direction and just look at the idea that in reality, what God gives us in eternity is what we ask for. And therefore, if He's giving us what we ask for, how can we say that that is unfair? He's just providing us an eternity that we request. Now, in order to see that's really what is happening in eternity, we need to look at a few places of Scripture. We're primarily going to look at 3 places. And the first place that we're going to look at is a place where Jesus was talking about the end time and the judgment, and that would be found in Matthew chapter 25, beginning in verse 31. So if we go there, we can see it says, "Now when the Son of Man comes in His glory, and all the angels with Him, then He will sit on His glorious throne." Now, in this passage, Jesus is talking about Himself, He being the Son of Man, and comes in His glory. That's where we're talking about this more end time period of existence. And we continue beginning in verse 32. It says, "Before Him will be gathered all the nations, and He will separate one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And He will place the sheep on His right, but the goats on His left. Then the King will say to those on His right, 'Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world.'" Now I want to take a minute to stop right there and put a little pin on that. He says, you will inherit the kingdom that was prepared from the foundation of the world, because we're going to focus on that in just a little bit. Beginning in verse 35, it continues on. It says, "For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then the righteous will answer Him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you?" And the King will answer them, "Truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me." Now let's take a look at what those on the left are going to receive. And it continues on, and he says, "Then He said to those on the left, 'Depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels.'" Now again, I want us to put a pin in part of that. Notice it says, the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. Now before we really dig into this, we need to figure out what the eternal fire is. And we can see this eternal fire mentioned in another place in the book of Revelation, chapter 21, beginning in verse 11. So if we switch over there, we'll be able to see this eternal fire discussed again. And it says in verse 11, "Then I saw a great white throne, and Him that was seated on it." So here we have a the great white throne judgment. This is a judgment scene, a very classic judgment scene in traditional Jewish writing. The great white throne and the judge sitting on the throne. And it says, and from his presence, earth and sky fled away, and no place was found for them. And I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and books were opened. Then another book was opened, which was the book of life. So let's take a break there. We've got books, plural, that are going to be opened. And then we'll have a second book, the book of life, that will also be open. Now let's move on. And the dead were judged by what was written in the books, according to what they had done. Now you may say, well, I thought we were supposed to be judged by our position in the covenant. And in essence, you are. Those that are in the covenant will be judged because they're in the covenant. But those that are not in the covenant have to be judged based on something. And they will be judged based on their works. So when it says the dead were judged by what was written in the books according to what they had done, we're talking about the spiritually dead, those who have not entered into the covenant. They will be judged by the works that have been recorded in those books. And since entering into the covenant relationship is the only way we can be viewed by Yahweh as being righteous. You can go back to Genesis where Abraham entered into the covenant relationship and Yahweh counted that for him as righteousness. That's the only way we can achieve righteousness, is by entering into the covenant. Anyone who does not enter into the covenant will be found unrighteous. Why? Because every one of us breaks the terms of the law. Every one of us at some point has broken God's law, whether it's because we have lied or because we have stolen something, or we have just to covet, we have wished that we had what someone else had, or we have not placed Yahweh in a position that He is supposed to be placed as Lord and Master of our life. At some point, every one of us has broken the law. Therefore, every one of us will be found unrighteous if we are not in the covenant. In other words, every one of us has done things that God says we cannot do. And our unrighteousness will be based on that. We continue on. It says, and the sea gave up the dead who were in it. Death and Hades gave up the dead who were in them, and they were judged, each one of them according to what they had done. And death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. There it is. There is that lake of fire, that eternal fire that Jesus was talking about. We move on, and it says, this is the second death, the lake of fire. If anyone's name was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. Again, if your name's not written in the book of life, you're not in the covenant. If you're not in the covenant, you are not going to be seen as righteous simply because you're not righteous. Now, some say that the lake of fire was prepared for the unrighteous. But that's not true. Remember, we go back to what Jesus taught. And I told you to stick a pin in that place in Matthew chapter 25 where it says, depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. You see, the lake of fire, or the eternal fire as Jesus calls it, was not prepared for us. It was not prepared for the unrighteous. The lake of fire, or the eternal fire, was prepared for the devil and his divine followers. That's who it was prepared for. So if that's the case, why are people then going to end up there? And that's a good question. And that's really what we need to find out. If the lake of fire was prepared for the devil, His divine followers, then in the end, after judgment, why are the unrighteous going to be there when it wasn't ever prepared for them? In order to understand that, we need to first see what the righteous will get. So if we go back again to Matthew chapter 25, beginning in verse 34, it says, "Then the king will say to those on his right, 'Come, you who are blessed of my Father,'" and again, this is the key, "inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world." Did you catch that? The righteous will get what humanity was supposed to get from the very beginning. You see, there is a kingdom. And when we talk about a kingdom, we're not just talking about a building or a location. We're talking about a system of the way things are done. And there was a location, yes, but there was a system of way things are supposed to be done that was prepared for humanity from the time that the earth was created. And that was God's way of doing things. Remember, He created humankind, and because we were like children and we didn't understand how to do things in the right way, He taught humanity, the man and the woman in the garden, how they were to live. What was right, what was wrong. That was His kingdom. That was His system of doing things. And when we finally matured to the point that we understood God's kingdom, we understood the right way and wrong way of doing things, the earth was to be our inheritance. That's what we were to be given as an inheritance. But there came a time when humankind rebelled. We rebelled in the garden, we continued to rebel before the flood, and then after the flood we continued to rebel, and it led up to the Tower of Babel. And in essence what we were saying to God is, we want our inheritance now. We want to be able to run the earth, do things our way now. We don't want your kingdom, we want our kingdom. And we saw that, again, going back to Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 8. It says, "When the Most High gave to the nations their inheritance." Did you catch that? He gave to humankind their inheritance. Our inheritance was supposed to come to us when we matured, and it would be this earth. That was to be our inheritance. But there came a time at the Tower of Babel where God gave humankind their inheritance and said, the earth is yours, you run it how you want to. However, based on the way we wanted to run it, our way of running it was in line with another divine being. And we, in essence, gave up our inheritance to this evil divine being. We lost our inheritance. If we again go back to the parable of the prodigal son. Just like the prodigal son came to his father and said, I want my inheritance now. The father gave it to him, and he went into a far country and he squandered the inheritance. That's what we did. That's what humankind did. We squandered our inheritance, and we ended up losing our inheritance to this other divine being. And we went into a hostage situation. We went into bondage. And then Jesus had to come down and ransom us out of that hostage situation. He ransomed us out of bondage. The problem is, our inheritance still belongs to the divine beings. It's no longer God's to give to us. He already gave it to us. We lost it and we squandered our inheritance. God doesn't have that inheritance to give to us anymore. So what is He going to do? Well, we can see what He's going to do in Revelation chapter 21, beginning in verse 1. It says, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away." What is this talking about? It's talking about a time when these evil divine beings are going to be judged, and eventually they will be cast into this lake of fire that was designed, was built, was created for them. Is God at that point going to say, okay, now I'm going to take my earth back? No, it still belongs to them. God is not going to steal it from them. But they will have absolutely no use for it. So it says that the first earth has passed away. It's going to be destroyed. When they are defeated, it will be destroyed. What is God going to give to his followers now? So what will God give to his followers? What will the righteous inherit? They can't inherit the original earth. It's going to be destroyed. That was the original plan, but that has been wiped out. In Matthew chapter 25, in beginning of verse 34, it says, "Then the king will say to those on his right, 'Come, you who are blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom I prepared for you from the foundation of the world.'" We will get what was originally planned. That is the new heaven, the new earth that is going to be formed. After the original earth is destroyed, because we squandered it, handed it over to these evil divine beings, there will be a new earth and a new heaven that will be given to us as our inheritance. Now, it's the same kingdom. It will be a kingdom that is designed and built around God's way of doing things. So it is the same kingdom that was originally prepared from the foundation of the world. And we will get it when? After we decide who our God really is. Remember, when we squandered our inheritance, we placed our allegiance, our loyalty, to these other divine beings. They became our gods. It's not a complex thing. Our God is the God that rules the kingdom that we choose. If we choose a kingdom that is built and designed and run the way God wants, Yahweh wants things, He is our God. If we choose the kingdom, the system of life that is designed the other way, then we choose that divine being as our God. Now, Yahweh's system, His kingdom, is all about placing Him first and living with each other in love, where we put everyone else first, we put their needs first, we put their well-being first. It's putting ourselves last and other people ahead of us. The other divine beings have a different system. They have a different kingdom, where it's, I try to get mine. I climb on top of everyone else to get what I want in life. It's not about me always sacrificing for someone else. It's about me getting everything that I can in this world. So which system do we place our loyalty? In each person's life, we're given a chance to reassign our loyalty. And what I say that is, what I mean by that is, we all start off in life with a loyalty to the system of selfishness. We start off in life wanting what the world has to offer, wanting the things, to do the things the way the world does them, where it's always about, I am trying to get mine. I'm not interested in sacrificing for everyone else around me. I'm trying to climb the ladder, and whether it be the ladder of success for my pride, or always trying to get the things out in the world so that I can have more possessions, having the things that I see and I want, and I'm always trying to live my life for me. That's how we all start off in life. But we have a chance to change. We have a chance to change our loyalty to a different kingdom. We can continue with the system that the world has, or we can find a new God. And the only other system in place is Yahweh's system, or if you're talking about Jesus, the essence, the physical essence of Yahweh. So those that make the decision to change from the system that we start with, the system of me, mine, self-centered system, and change to a system, a kingdom that is focused on others, Yahweh's system, that determines who our God is. We can stay with our God, the divine evil being, that's his system, or we can change our loyalty to a new God and his system. But that also determines who we spend eternity with. Because you see, we will all spend eternity with the God of our choice. Every one of us is being given the opportunity to exist for all eternity with the God that we choose. Those that choose to change their loyalty to Yahweh, they will receive the inheritance that was planned from the foundation of the world, and that will be the new earth, and it will be run on a system that Yahweh has in place. But those who do not change their loyalty, what about them? Same thing. They will be given the privilege of spending an eternity with their God. Everyone gets the same thing. It's not that God is being mean to one group and nice to the other. God is giving both groups exactly what they asked for. It's fair to everyone. The problem is not, where will I spend eternity? The problem is, where will my God spend eternity? Because remember, this war has nothing to do with us. The war is between Yahweh and his followers, and the devil, the evil divine being, and his followers. Paul talks about that in Ephesians chapter 6. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in heavenly places. The battle is not with us. The battle is with these spiritual forces of evil. Yahweh and his forces against the spiritual forces of evil in heavenly places, as Paul put it. But ultimately, everyone will decide which side of that battle on which they will fight. Who will be their God? Yahweh and his way of doing things, the spiritual forces of evil and their way of doing things. Now you may say, well, I choose neither. Well, you have to choose one. There are only two ways of living. Yahweh's way and evil way. Those are the only two ways that you can live. And remember, we all start aligned with the evil one and his forces. That's how we all start. And during everyone's life, they're given the chance to decide, do I stay with the side that I'm on, or do I change my loyalty to the other side? That determines your God. And then when this battle is over, the spiritual forces of evil have been defeated, they will be cast into the lake of fire that has been prepared for them. And then humankind will enter into judgment. So first off, they're going to be cast into the lake of fire. It was designed for them. That's where they're going to go. Then we will be given the honor and we will be given the privilege of spending all eternity with our God. You see, God is not sending people to the lake of fire because he is this mean, grumpy person. Everyone is actually given a very fair way of deciding. People are given the chance to decide their God, and then Yahweh will allow you to spend eternity with your God. That's not evil. That's not cruel. Don't think that spending an eternity in the lake of fire is God being cruel. It was never designed for you. You were never supposed to get there. Only the spiritual forces of evil were supposed to be there. But folks, anyone who wants to follow that system, Yahweh will let you spend eternity in that system if that's what you want. In reality, it's very simple. And to a degree, it's actually loving. The question really is not, where do I want to spend eternity? The question is, who do I want as my God? Once we make the decision on who we want as our God, we get to spend all eternity with that individual. But now keep in mind, Yahweh's going to win. It may not look like he's winning now, but in the end he will win. And he will put the losers into the lake of fire. The losers of this battle, the devil and his divine followers, they're going to be put in the lake of fire. The decision of who my God is not a lifetime decision. It's an eternal decision. Now, if you have already made the change, you have already switched from the evil system, the evil kingdom, and giving your loyalty to Yahweh and his kingdom, then you have a kingdom that is waiting for you. That was the same kingdom that was originally prepared for humankind. And that system will still be given to you. If you haven't made the change, you're still following that evil divine system, and you're following the God of that system, then I encourage you, switch sides. You will get to spend an eternity with that evil divine God in a place you were never supposed to go. But Yahweh will let you go if that is really the God that you want. Yahweh has warned everyone. In his word, in creation, everyone is being warned that there are two systems in place. The system that we all start with in life, and another system that's actually very foreign to us in our physical. And Yahweh is making it very clear, I'm going to win. This other God is going to lose. And when that happens, this other God is going to be cast into the lake of fire that was prepared for him. And then I am going to let everyone else live eternity with their gods. It's just a matter of who have you chosen as your God. I hope that everyone watching this video chooses the winner, chooses Yahweh, because ultimately that's the God we all want to spend eternity with. Hey, thank you for joining us again this week, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Bye-bye.